All right, to the Herald Group Vice President Sabrina Schaeffer and Caller News Foundation Editor-in-Chief Chris Bedford. Sabrina, what do you make of all this?
Well, it's interesting. Not only are we just a couple of days away from the president's meeting with Putin in Helsinki, but this is coming on the heels of some pretty loud bullying coming from the president against one of our allies in Great Britain. And so it's sort of interesting to see how he's going to play this now. He really needs to step up and confront Putin in a real way, not in a way to sort of, assuage the press here in America, but to sort of reassure Americans that he's really taking this seriously, because we cannot allow the Russians, or any other country for that matter, to undermine our democratic institutions.
You know, Chris, there seems to be no doubt that the Russians were involved in trying to insert themselves in the last election. I think the more pressing need is that they don't do so again, regardless of your opinion, how far they got in the 2018 midterms just a few months from now, say nothing of the 2020 presidential election. What do you think?
It seems from these indictments and the indictments we saw earlier this year of another 13 Russians and a couple companies is that they were interested not just in President Donald Trump, but also in supporting Bernie Sanders. And those two candidates, what they really have in common is they're the maximum disruption to Washington candidates and also serious long shots. So the Russians seem like they're interested in sowing discord. Now, I don't know exactly how we would be able to stop them from causing discord. Right now, you've got spreading news, spreading fake news, spreading memes on Facebook. You can do that because you have the power of the internet. And you also have these hacking scandals. And these aren't sophisticated James Bond sneaking past the laser scandals. This is sending a link to John Podesta or other people and saying, click here to reset your password. Clicks it, and it resets his password and gives up his information. A lot of these hacks, while the operations were military in Russia, they weren't particularly sophisticated to get a lot of access that they got. And if you can't have that basic computer safety, then you're going to be in trouble for elections for as far as I can see coming.
Yeah, crude as it was, and I've heard that as well, Chris. I mean, it was effective in that it could be traced later, sometimes years later, but it could be traced. Sabrina, the White House has put out a statement through Lindsay Walters, the White House Deputy Press Secretary, quoting here, as Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein said today, there is no allegation in this indictment that Americans knew that they were corresponding with Russians. There is no allegation in this indictment that any American citizen committed a crime. There is no allegation that the conspiracy changed the vote count or affected any election result. Today's charges include no allegations of knowing involvement by anyone in the campaign and no allegations that the alleged hacking affected the election result. This is consistent with what we have been saying all along. What do you make of that?
You know, it's fine that they are defending themselves. I think Judge Napolitano made the same point that we need to know, we need to point out the difference between people who knowingly may have contributed to this and those who participated in an unknowingly fashion. That being said, what I would like to hear from the White House is a bit more of what Rosenstein said, which is that this is not a partisan issue. This is a deep threat to the future of the country. We have to take this as an act of war, as some congressmen have said, that when our elections become something that outside countries can influence the way that we clearly can, and we have an election coming up in just a few months, we need to sort of stop pointing fingers and take a deep look inside and say, what can we do? Where do we need to lock things down? How do we need to educate the public? How do we need to strengthen the local election bureaus and make sure that we have the right technology in place? There's a lot of things that need to happen other than sort of shielding ourselves from blame.
All right, guys, thank you very, very much.